Hello, everyone, and welcome to our weekly Power Lounge, where this is your place to hear authentic conversations from women in digital who have power to share. My name is Amy Vaughan, and I am the owner and Chief Empowerment Officer of Together Digital, a diverse and collaborative community of women who work in digital, who choose to share their knowledge, power, and connections. You can learn more about us at www.togetherindigital.com. Welcome to Brooklyn, our guest today, Brooklyn Dicent, and welcome to our live listening audience. Thank you for joining us today to talk about the science of happiness. Brooklyn, aka the Chief Happiness Officer, love the title, teaches us how to become culture curators by creating positive and energized work environments. She has appeared on ABC, NBC, CBS, and dozens of podcasts, now including this one, championing the power of positive mindset as a critical component for brain health and wellness. Brooklyn will help you make shifts happen. I love it. Brooklyn, welcome. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you for having me, Amy. This is so fun. I cannot wait.
I know, right? Brooklyn, you have such amazing energy, and I hope everybody feels it, not just on the Zoom today while we're recording, but in the podcast after, because after these last few years, we all could use a little bit more positivity, happiness in our lives. As I was kind of researching and learning more about you and how you came to be where you are, I found it very fascinating because you seem to be one of these people who knows how to harness your multitudes and package it in a way that allows you to share your gift with the world. And I just think that's one, amazing. Two, not so easy to do for everyone. So how did you get to where you are now as what we like to call a multi-potentialite, someone who just clearly has a number of gifts and talents? How did you get to where you are now?
Thank you. Great question. And I first got to say, those people who are here on this call right now, thank you for being off camera where you are. It gives me some energy. So thank you so much. I appreciate that. And I will tell you that it all comes down to giving yourself permission to play. Permission to play. You know, and I have discovered in the last decade or so that when you give yourself permission to play, and when I say play, meaning be yourself. And when I say be yourself, I mean be yourself at a higher level. So if you think of, Hulu Plus, Disney Plus, it's you plus, right? It's me plus. What do I want to do? And I find this interesting whenever I go to shows, whenever I go to performances, right? So like, for example, last night, I went to see Florence and Machine.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Had no idea what to expect. But as I'm seeing people, feel in the arena, it never fails. There's a few people who just want to get into it, who just want to, whatever's happening, they want to get into it. And then you find other people like, oh no, like come down, like, don't get so excited. And we have this thing that we really want to play. We want to let sort of our inner playfulness, our inner clown come through. And I use that word specifically, our inner clown come through in a way that allows us to be who we really want to be. And one day I decided, again, about over a decade ago, whether I was working for a company or I was on my own or whatever, that I just wanted to see what it's like to be me and to show up, to fully show up in who I am. And at the beginning, I was a little nervous and concerned. What will people think, right? That little voice in our head. Well, what would people think? And really, it's like, who cares?
Right?
Nobody's paying attention. Nobody cares. And so just be you. And if people have something to say, guess what? It doesn't matter, because they'll move on with their life. But what it did for me was enlighten me. And when I say enlighten, I mean truly, and like made me lighter, right? Yeah. And this permission to play takes courage, because it's like, okay, if I want, and when I say permission to play, it's I walk into an elevator. Yes, I'm that person. And I'm like, hello, everyone. How's everybody doing today? Even if there's nobody there. No, but typically there's a person too there, right? It's like, good morning. And I'm like, oh, this is so fun. And just people want, in the moment you give yourself permission to play, you find other players, you find other people who are also willing to play a little bit, even if it's a smile, even if it's a connection in some way, people want to be given permission to play. So that's my first line of defense. Allow yourself to play.
I love it. That is great. Yeah. And I agree with you. I just never thought about that when you allow yourself to play, you're giving others permission and you find those other players, and it makes it that much easier to have more fun.
Yes.
That is so great. So in your career path and journey, you've gotten a number of degrees and certifications. You've also have a degree in behavioral studies and have
Mhm.
specifically studied positive psychology.
Yes.
How did happiness become your focus as you were kind of learning to play and narrowing it in on what you wanted to do?
Yes. Such a great question. I love your questions. Okay. So I want to say I was, I don't know, mid-20s, and I lived in Portland, Maine. And I was walking down the street, just kind of just hanging out, checking out the city. And I sort of newly moved to Portland. And I thought, okay, I need to kind of check out the city. I was walking around, and I passed by this kind of storefront, and it was the Comedy Connection.
Mhm.
And I had never seen comedians before. I had never really experienced it, never seen a live show, whatever. And while I was walking by, it said, show was literally was going to start within like 2 hours.
Mhm.
I thought, I need to check this out. I remember I was a corporate trainer at the time. I've always been a corporate trainer. I'm like, oh, this is so interesting. And so I got into the show, watched these comedians do what they do. And I'm like, wait a minute. Like, is this a thing? Like, this is a thing? Like, people can get on stage and make people laugh, stop. Because it's
Yeah.
what I do all the time in my trainings, right? I make people laugh. I kind of find the humor. And I come from kind of a funny family anyway. So I'm like, oh, this is dope. I need to know how to do this right now. And so I approached the owner of the club, and I said, how do I learn to do this? He goes, well, it so happens that, I have an 8-week class you can join, and you can learn to do comedy. I'm like, done, I'm in. And so I tend to do things that typically terrifies people.
Uh-huh.
Most people wouldn't be caught. No, you mean put a literal spotlight on my weaknesses and my flaws. And this is what drives comedy, is our flaws, our things that we don't like, and our body shapes and our weirdness. I'm like, this is celebrated. Stop. And somehow unconsciously, I was drawn to it.
Mhm.
So I did comedy. I say did comedy on and off for a number of years. And I found that the process of writing comedy, of getting into comedy, the creative process was helpful for people at work.
Mm. Yeah.
And so I started thinking, I wonder how I can teach comedy in a regular workplace. And so I started speaking on something called, I call it, I think at the time, humor in the workplace. And so, and of course, a lot of people are humor impaired, and with resting, business faces. And so I thought, how can I make this really, really interesting? And I found that I was having a challenge always explaining what I did. I'm a
Mhm.
comedian and I speak on this, but really what I'm trying to teach you is how the brain works, and how comedians have tapped into turning problems into punchlines.
Oh,
And so, right. And they were like, oh, cool. But then I was always people were kind of resistant. But then I stumbled upon this concept of positive psychology. And positive psychology, basically, unlike typical psychology, what it looks at is not so much about your past and what's happened, but looking at to the future and positivity. And how can you tap into all the various tools that help you to feel better about yourself, your environment, or whatever it is, in a realistic way, and move forward. And so I thought, how about happiness? Teach happiness at work. Happiness at work. And all of a sudden I changed the word from humor to happiness, and boom. People are like, yes, we need that. Yes, we need. I'm doing the same thing, but I'm still being humorous. I'm still being sort of comedic, but
Right.
also really teaching the science of happiness and how the brain works. Because what I noticed is the connection in comedy. I noticed how comedians thought, and I thought, man, if people learn these tools, it could
Mhm.
really revolutionize how you live your life every day.
Mhm. That's amazing. I love that. And there's so much research and study around positive psychology and how the use of it, and it always ends up getting aligned to sports, but I don't know why it doesn't like bleed out into other areas. But I was having a conversation with my daughter. We were both doing our reading time at night, and she was talking, she plays soccer. And she's so naturally gifted, and she's kind of past that age of just instinctively doing what she knew to do and where to
Mhm.
be, to now overthinking. And we were talking about, we got off the field, she's like, I think I would make a better coach than a player. I was like, well, that's interesting. Why do you think that? She's like, because I just think that I have good advice and good ideas for people. I said, well, how do you coach yourself? And then she looks at me and she goes, not very well. And I said, well,
Wow.
maybe from now on, instead of letting yourself like talk to yourself the way you've been talking to yourself, what if you talk to yourself as if you were your own coach? And so I was watching her during practice, and I'd also been, when we were doing our reading at night, I was reading a book that talked about some research where they had just a bunch of, college students doing free throws, and they taught them some tools of positive psychology and positive visualization. And just through that alone, they increased their free throw rate by 50%. So it's
Yes,
like, there's
real
definitely
thing.
science behind this. It's not just some hoity-toity thing. So I think that it's so cool. It's funny how like the nuance of changing humor to happiness is one thing, but I'm sure that like the next hurdle for you is, helping people understand the foundations of what positive psychology is and what it takes to actually achieve those goals that you might have of happiness.
No, absolutely. And in fact, as you say that, you encapsulated in that example exactly what the science of happiness is about. Because here's the interesting thing. If I said, hey, let's talk about the signs of mediocrity or the signs of, being sad, it's essentially the other side of this coin. And we are the signs of negativity. Let's say, for example, that would be a great TED talk, the signs of negativity. Learn about it. It really is the opposite side of the same coin. Because we have the capacity in our brain right now to do the things. So let me just say this, wherever you are today, you've gotten here because of all the thoughts and the things you've decided, the choices you've made in your life is why we are literally in this room right now.
100%.
Right. And some of them were great and some of them were not so great. And we learn from those things. And so what happens is that we are wired for negativity, not because, brain is trying to keep you back, but because it's trying to keep you safe. Yep. It's trying to keep us safe. Right. And so our job is to say, okay, and I get it. And understand where fear comes from, doubt comes from, and all that stuff. It's all sort of, been programmed early on into our existence. Since we were little, from 0 to 7, we are sponges. Our brain is, I'm going to get into a little scientific stuff here. We have 4 brain waves, right? Sort of our brain can be in 4 states, right? And so you have beta, alpha, theta, and delta. And delta is when we're asleep. Theta is in that moment when your brain is, you're kind of like lulling yourself to sleep. You may have even start to almost dream a little bit, but you start getting into the sleep state is theta. Alpha is a state of creativity. And if you ever want to be, you have to write a paper, write emails, engage with people in a sort of focused state. There is music that helps to bring the brain into alpha state, that helps you to be creative. And beta is where we are right now. Alert to a certain extent. And alert is best, alert and paying attention, that's beta. Okay, so what happens is that when we're from 0 to 7 years old, our brain pretty much is theta. It is just taking in all this information we're sponging in. We don't have a wherewithal to determine whether what we're being taught is good, bad, or indifferent. We're just taking it in. And that gets locked into, by the time you're 7 years old, it gets locked into your psyche. Okay, what happens is as we grow older, some of those things will help us and some things won't, right? Our parents' fears, doubts, worries, limitations, limiting beliefs, it's all in there and it gets ingrained and we kind of follow suit. So as we grow older, we're like, okay, say for example, simple thing. You set an alarm, and some people will have 2 and 3 alarms they set in the morning. It's time to get up and you decided on Monday you're going to work out. Like, you know what? That's it. Enough with this madness. I'm going to work out on Monday. I'm going to get up and work out on Monday. Monday rolls around. The last thing you want to do is get up and work out. It's just not going to happen, right? And that mentality is ingrained because somewhere along the line you said, you know what? I don't really want to. And our people around is like, not really into it. Unless you were raised by Olympians. It's not a thing, right? And so it wasn't our environment. We are just taught. This is sort of, we're taught mediocrity. We're taught what we call sort of the mediocre mindset. Unfortunately, not in all cases, but in a lot of cases. And so we're taught to give up. We're taught these things very early on without even meaning to. Oh, don't worry about it. Do it tomorrow. Oh, you can, don't worry about it. Do it that. And we're taught to kind of give up. And then you have to retrain the brain. No. I actually do want this. And you have to, and we can get into sort of some psychology there, but the key is to allow yourself to feel what it feels like after the workout. Oh, I feel phenomenal. I feel like a warrior. I feel like a corporate athlete. I feel like a life athlete. I feel like an Olympian, right? That feeling you get and what it feels, and not only just after, but during, what it feels like, right? To lift the weights and to put them down, to lift them up again, to put them down, whatever the thing you get into, or the dance, whatever you get into, have your body feel that and envision that. And what happens when we create the vision of it, your brain's like, okay, so this is what Amy wants, right? Okay, got it. right? Ultimately, the image we usually have is like, oh, let me sleep some more. Oh, let me just oh, it's just so cold in the middle of summer. It's just so cold, right? And so the image that we have is that of mediocrity and giving up on whatever, that's what we're going to go for. You see what I'm saying? And so all you got to do is, I usually say, if you want to change the result, change the picture, change the image, change the mind movie that you're playing, and you'll see how you start to get the results you're looking for, because now you're programming your brain the proper way.
Some people call that manifesting, right?
Yes. Well, yes. So interesting thing. I love manifestation. I love law of attraction. I love all that business. The missing link oftentimes for manifestation, which is here's a real secret. You got to do the work. So, right, you got to do the work, but the work happens first in the mind. It happens first with the thoughts, and not just the thoughts, the imagery that you put into the thoughts. Like, for example, when you told us this story about your daughter in the field, we saw her in the field, and we saw her and her. How is that possible? Because that's how our brain works. We work through stories, and the stories we tell ourselves, right? It either winds us up to do the thing or winds us back to not do the thing, right? So I'm saying use the same tools that you have for giving up to making shift happen.
Right? I love it, to making shift happen. All right. So if we're trying to set the bar, I wanted to ask a kind of an obvious question, but still I feel like for me it would be an interesting answer, is how do you define happiness?
So good. So first of all, my definition of happiness is not probably traditional, but it's not really about the happy, joy. To me, happiness is, and this is part of what I've experienced because I teach this all the time, so I have to get in it. And so when I wake up in the morning, not feeling like a chief happiness officer, more like a chief misery officer, I'm like, oh my gosh. And that's the worst title to have to give yourself around your friends, because not, you're like, oh, I thought you were the chief happiness officer. Why are you not happy now? I mean, what? So the key is that it's finding the joy in the challenges. So here's the fascinating thing. Our brains love challenges, loves to solve problems, loves challenges, and it's constantly looking for solutions. So when we are in the midst of a challenge, whether that's at work, in life, in relationship, no matter what it is, your brain is looking for solutions. In fact, it's why we dream. We dream because our brain's trying to solve through issues. And so to me, happiness is the state, or if you will, that I'm going to put myself in. And how do you put yourself into a happy state to solve problems? You literally, it's gratitude. It could be play music. I can get myself into an alpha or even a theta state through music to get my brain to the place of, you know what, let's figure out this problem. Because joy comes from moving through a problem, transition through a problem, going through the mucky muck of the problem to get to the solution, no matter what that is. And is that sense of accomplishment you get after, right? Mm-hmm. That sense of like, wow, I did this. This feels good. And in fact, when I'm in the middle of my workout, I'm in the middle of my run, and I'm having that moment where I'm like, oh, I literally am like, this feels so freaking good. This is amazing. Even though I'm in the drudgery of it. Mm-hmm. The brain loves to solve problems. And so to me, happiness is really about, it's a state that I can put myself into, but it's really about finding out, so how do we do this? How do I solve this? Give me some ideas. Then you start noticing people will show up, ideas will show up. You'll see something on a show, you have a podcast conversation, something will come up, like, I got it. This is how we do it. And that little moment, a little sense of like, that little spark of like, got it, right? It's what we go after that comes from within. That to me, I don't know if it's necessarily a definition, but it's how I see happiness. It's not necessarily like, oh, I gotta always be striving for this sense, this feeling of like always being positive or always being happy. No, because there could be some miserable moments, right? Whether that's retrograde or whatever it is. It could be like, right. What is this about? And then I step back and go, thank you for this. Thank you for this problem. Thank you for this challenge. The sense of gratitude, like, yep, this is mine. If I had a tree with a bunch of problems, everybody's problems, I'd probably go and pick mine. Yeah, I got this, right? And so to me, that's how I define happiness, is really finding ways to move through, in and through challenges and solving problems that we have in life. And that's just, it's a joy. It's an absolute joy.
I love that. Yeah. Happiness is not an end state. It is the way you move through things.
Yes.
I 100% agree. And I've read the same thing about runners too, especially those crazies who like to run ultras and whatnot,
Yeah.
It is just positive mindset and being grateful in the moment and appreciating what their body is doing in that moment. as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And they, yeah. Oh, this whole thing, which I'm not even a runner. Let me be clear. When I say
Right.
running, I mean, run, I run, walk. I don't know how to
Right.
put those two words together, but
Yeah.
walk, run, rock. I don't know what to call, cause I run a little bit and then I walk and then I run a little bit. Let's be real. I feel like a runner, and then I just basically push my shoulders back, and I feel like my blades coming together. I'm like, oh, all those muscles are working, doing the work. But then I'm so happy that my entire body feels good, that I have no pain. This is amazing, and that
Right.
sense of joy. Again, I'm like, let's go. And what does the brain do the next morning? Get up.
Yeah, it wants it again.
It wants it. It wants it again. Like, oh, that was fun. Let's go. Let's lace up. Let's do this. And that's what I'm saying is you get into that, what I call the happiness habit, making sure that you create a habit of finding the joy and the happiness in the drudgery.
Yeah.
That's a key, because you will see how you will want to do it more. You will surpass the barriers to the things that you want to accomplish when you are actually creating more of a happiness habit.
I love it. Happiness habit. That is fantastic. So what does brain health and wellness have to do with happiness? Because again, we've talked a lot about mental health over the last 2 years, especially. So I was kind of curious as to how that impacts.
It has a tremendous, well, first of all, we can't walk around without a head. Right? Unfortunately, right? Now, if I could, honestly, sometimes I wish I could be just a helmet, and can I just put it here?
Right.
Can I just put it to just stay, honey, just stay right there. I'll be right back. Because it's too much, right? So in the process, the deal is that for mental health, brain health, all that business, it's how we view situations. Literally through the pandemic, and we all experienced it. This is granted, we've all heard this. This is the one experience that completely every human on the planet experienced the exact same experience from an external thing, right? What happens internally was very different. Some people succumb to it. People are still like, oh, and then the pandemic hit. You hear this a lot, but then the pandemic hit, and then that term, and then the pandemic hit. Suddenly their lives were just turned upside down. And for a lot of people, for many of us, it was. It's how we approach it. Now, you probably have heard people say before, it's not what happens to you, it's how you respond to it. This was a perfect, like, real life example of how you respond to it. But here's the catch, Amy. Here's the catch. If you didn't build the happy brain muscles ahead of time, it affected people dearly. Right? In my industry, with a speaking, training, entertaining, whatever it is, I saw so many peers going, oh, that's it. We can't do live events. It's over. Right? Oh, I did. And I'm like, wow, hold on. Do we still suffer from polio and all these other diseases that were back in the early 1900s? No. Why? Because we figured out how to overcome it. So wait a minute, for the first time, we're thrown into a situation where we have to train literally our brain to look at things from a different perspective. Now that we're through it and we look back, are we ever going to be in that same scenario again? I promise you not. Could there be other things? Yes, but we now have had a collective experience that has taught us one or two things. Either I succumb to it or I find another way. And this was a perfect example of you have to find another way. But in order to succumb or to overcome any other circumstance like this in your life, training your brain to, it's a muscle. It's a muscle. And not just your brain, your mind, it's a muscle, your thoughts, the perspective that your thoughts have. And I'll tell you right now, if I were to ask anybody in this room or anybody listening, hey, right now, out loud, say what you dream about. Say the one thing you would love to do what's your dream? What's your ultimate thing you want to do? People take a breath. The heart starts going, starts racing a little bit. And that's just a thought. Right? Just a thought. And what I usually tell people is notice how you felt. If you had a twinge of fear, a twinge of doubt, like, oh, I don't think I can, stop. That means that's an indication that you need to do more reps. Right? You're out just in that little moment of recognition that, oh, I'm afraid, I don't think I can do it. Right then, stop and recognize, oh, I got work to do here. Right? I got work to do here. So whenever, and that's part of the brain training, right? So brain training, if you will, if you train your brain to think about to have not just happier thoughts or positive thoughts, but see yourself doing the things you want to do. Train your brain now. So when you are in a situation, when the situation arises, you can come up against it, right? Which is literally why we work out. We work out, yes, to look great and everything else, but it's so that your body can sustain whatever comes down the line. When I realize this, I'm like, oh my gosh, if I ever get sick or I have a slip and fall, or whatever, or I need surgery of some sort, I need my body to be in a shape that it can overcome whatever comes my way, right? Same thing mentally. When you have challenges, life will be like, oh, you're not having, you're bored. Hang on a minute. And here comes like a deluge of, whatever you say that, of things that happen in your life. And how you respond to it has to be, it's based on how you're trained, how you train yourself now. So while things are chill, and even if your life right now is a complete mess and upheaval and you're going through all kinds of stuff, find that moment to be grateful for it. Believe it or not, no matter what it is, be great. Like, yeah, this was for me. There's a lesson for me to learn. What is it? And then going to your creative, what I call it, creative workshop, right? Whether that's through meditation. By the way, people ask me, so how do you meditate? Sit down and be quiet. That's
that's about it. That's all you need to do. Not
stop
that hard.
Talking. That's right. Stop talking and don't try to do anything else. But if you take the time to and literally just like you train your body and you figure out how to get physically better, mentally better, you got to take the time, got to exercise the time to actually create what you want, to design what you want, to write down. And I do this motion purposely, like write down on paper, what are the things you want? How do you want to feel? How do you want to be? How do you want to think? And begin to program your brain from that standpoint. You can start to battle and minimize the negativity that comes up when things happen in your life, right? Because dreams and imagination are free, literally free, right? And we can do it anytime, for 60 seconds. It doesn't take that long. But we got to train our brain to think positively and not just like, put your head in the sand. Oh, that's fine. Things are great. No. If something's coming up in your life and you don't know what to do about it, the key word is yet. You know what? I haven't figured out how to do this yet, but I will. Yeah. What will it take? What do I need? Who's my resources? And the brain will begin to start doing the work of figuring it out. Okay, let's go. You will get a dream. You'll get a phone call, manifestation. You'll get a phone call. Somebody will show up, right? Because you are on the path of solving a problem. And the brain loves it. And that, in essence, is how you prepare. And so it does have a tremendous impact on your brain and health and wellness, because ultimately, your brain, your mind dictates the results you get, how you feel about things, etc.
Yeah, it's creating like mental resilience. I love that. And I mean, I've heard so many people say that it's a perspective of things happening to you versus happening for you. Is another common thing I've heard people say. A lot of it's like, yeah, we're all going to get handed a big stinking pile of something at some point in our lives. If we're actually alive, which I hope we all are, then if that's the case, yeah, it's all in perspective. That's some great advice there. We did have a question come through on the chat that I wanted to go ahead and just pop in now. It's from Brenda, who's in Detroit. I have a family member who is a chronic complainer, and then we had several listeners agree, and I also had that person pop into my brain on my side of things when she brought this question up, and makes me feel awful about myself when we chat. It's not someone in my household, but it's a person that I need to check in with every week from a caregiving perspective. Any advice, because they give me a happiness funk. I feel you, Brenda. That's hard.
They steal your happiness. They steal, right?
Vampire.
There's so much here to unpack. But let me give you a couple of not even a couple. I wonder what would happen if. I wonder what would it be like if. See, so that statement, whoever's complaining, say they can, this weather's horrible. I'm like, I wonder what it would be like if we lived in Ireland. What happens is, it's called pattern interrupt. We can go so deep into this. It's pattern interrupt. So play with me here a little. Everything in our mind, or our mind works through, again, words and images, words and images. The complainer is not complaining silently. They're not just sitting there, they have to say words. So my task is to take whatever they're saying and create a different image in their head. Interrupt the negative pattern to something else. I've done it with my mom many a times. She goes on this rant. I don't know about you guys. You get on the phone with somebody, and especially parents at a certain age, like they can't even hear you anymore. They're just talking. And I'm like, huh. I'm like, Mom, I wonder what it would be like. And then I pause. I stopped their brain from thinking, and I started making their brain pay attention. Because here's the beauty of the brain. Actually, do you want to know the most amazing tool for the brain? Is that a question? It perks up and like, what's a question? And then creates the imagery. So you can tell them anything. I wonder what watermelon would taste like in the winter in like Alaska or something. What do you think of that? They go, what are you talking about? Right. And so I'm going to interrupt their pattern. Now, are they constantly complaining? Yes, because here's what's happening with the complainer. And this could be also the positive person could be the same way. They are stuck in their story. Right. That's all they know in their story, because they're feeding negativity. I bet, and Brenda, anybody you can tell me, they probably are on the news. They're stuck to the things. They're looking at all the negativity in the world. And that is what their brain is coded with. Their brain is coded with this negativity. So that's all so what's coming out of them is that it's garbage in, garbage out. So that's what's coming out of them. You, on the other hand, have a different perspective. So what's your tools? Words, thought, right? Your words and images. So you can create images or a different story with the words they use. So I wonder what it would be like. And Brenda, if you want to put in like I think in your person needs to check. Yeah, like an example of what they say, like statements they say, because here's the interesting thing. The brain is, you know how people are like, oh, use affirmations, they're great. The brain works in similar affirmations. It just repeats itself, right? It's always on repeat. So by the time they're talking to you, they've had this on freaking repeat, right? So some things you can do, this comes from, I'm borrowing this from the world of neuro-linguistic programming. It's terms, it's words, it's phrases. I wonder what it would be like. What would happen if, and they get some thinking. I wonder what would happen if, let me think about this. Literally, I'm just doing it as a cue to get the brain to stop that pattern and go for it. Does that make sense? Let's see.
Yeah, she says the person repeats themselves all the time, but I think their memory is going a bit. And I mean, again, in the person I was thinking of, it's the same thing. You know, it's chronically complaining about customers at their shop. And I just never quite know what to say or do about it, because it's the same stories, the same examples, and the same woes, and never anything different. So if you want to use that as an example, yeah, I don't know what I interject with there, but
yeah, no, I love it. So this is so good. So this is so great. So you have someone that you check in, that they have a shop, they have a store. Okay, and they're always complaining about their customers. Leave me like a complaint that you heard them say.
That they just commonly want to come in and get everything for a massive discount or free.
I wonder what would happen if everything was free. Well, I know, but just imagine, what would that be like, right? Because I'm going to shift them. And so this is what they call the contrarian, but I'm going to make them think. The moment you ask the question, you're going to make them think about the question. So you can, and like I said, permission to play with it, see what happens. Here's my thing, Amy. Even I'm not attached to the result. I'm not going to have them go, oh, well, and all of a sudden become positive. No.
Right.
Right. My intention is to shift your thinking, shift that state that you're in. Right. Because here's my thing. They are creatively, they've managed to be there's such negativity. They've done a great job. They are master negative people. They're just fantastic at it.
Yeah.
Right. The same way we're trying to go the opposite. They've mastered it. They just don't know it. And you notice they have, frowns, because negativity will put you in this sort of negative state. And so I'm going to play with it. I wonder, let's say her name is Mary. Mary, remind me, when's your birthday? It's blah blah. I can ask all kinds of, because I'm going to disrupt their thinking. And if I'm trying to also help and say, well, I wonder, I'm like, yeah, you know what? Most people do. I wonder what would be like if everything was free. Remember when everything was free? What was that? Well, we used to barter, right? And you get into this dialogue, you're going to shift their thinking, shift their mentality. The next person that does this conversation may come up in their memory.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Brand says, this is something very similar to what I do. Positive redirection. Yes, I have a family member who tends to be negative, asking a question with an intent to shift their perspective. Yes, absolutely. It will shift their perspective. Oh my gosh. And I usually have it here. I actually didn't think okay. I always have cards when I'm in meetings. I have these cards, and I'm usually shuffling these cards. People are like, what? They're not playing. They're kind of playing cards, but they're not really playing cards. What they are they cards with suggestions, thought suggestions, right? And I feel
tarot cardish.
Tarot cardy right now. I feel so tarot cardy right now. It's like number seven. Okay, here's number 7. Here's the question. The question is, what happens when you imagine blank? Right. So that's a great question. So what happens? So tell me, what happens if you imagine that whenever someone asks you for something for free, they're really just asking for the most expensive thing you have? Wait, what? Well, I don't know. Let's think about that. But right, you're not going to do a coaching session in the moment, but it's just the question. And sometimes I will drop a question and then walk away.
Bye.
Walk away. Bye. Right? Like, what? Yeah. How are you today?
Yeah.
Imagine. Right. So and yes, energy vampires, absolutely. They are, but they've mastered that experience. They've mastered it. And now by the way, we've had this conversation, you recognize it right away. You'll see it right away. And it's how you diffuse situations and how you can shift and redirect your thinking by posing a question. And you can also Google like questions to redirect a person from negativity to positivity. But really what it is get them thinking differently. That's all you want. Thoughts and images. So you can change their picture. It might change how they feel.
Right.
Because I was gonna say, because the language of the brain is thoughts and the language of the body is emotions. Right. So when you shift how they're thinking, it'll change how they feel. That question may shift how they feel.
Yeah.
And to round out, my mom loves having conversations with me. She's like, you're my coach. And I'm like, not today, Mom, not today.
Lucky mama. She's a lucky lady. Well, that's funny. It also reminded me of motivational interviewing, because I think negativity can be weirdly an addiction, right? Like the same way that runner's high can be an addiction, a positive reaction and response to your body, kind of asking questions as a way to redirect, but then understand underlying motivations as well. Plus just asking questions that open up the limiting beliefs that they have by just being ridiculous and asking like, well, what if everything was free? Like,
yes.
I'm really excited to ask the question. We'll
and what is everything was free? Yes. And it's also when and somehow your energy makes this person want to do this, right? And somehow it drives them, and you were like, okay, it was impacting enough that you thought it, right? That when we're having this conversation, it came to your mind. So I'm like, okay, here's what I could do, because you're helping leave these little nuggets of experience that will change somebody's life down the road. Who knows how it impacts them? But it's the motivation why they shared it, why they're sharing that story, right? And here's another thing people do. It's for everybody. We tend to generalize this thing called generalizations and distortions. So when this person says, everybody's always coming in here looking for discounts. Everybody. You weren't. So, I mean, unless you were, and they're like, okay. So, but so does like everybody, you mean there's like nobody that doesn't? You can be like, what about me? Right. So, because what happens is that people will generalize stuff, distort all kinds of things and go, this is how it is. Right. Seattle is rainy. No, it's not rainy. It hasn't rained here in, I don't know, 16 months. I have no idea. But it's like Seattle is cloudy and raining all the time. It's always, when people say things like always, never, like they book things into generalizations. What you can also do is not deflect it, but bring it down to specifics. Well, is it everybody? Is it always? Is it everything? Now, mind you, if you have a person you care about, they're going to take this on a whole nother level. Or they'll say, what did you go to some training? What did you do? What are you reading? What what are you doing? You trying to psychobabble me? No. So, but the key is, hey, I wonder what if, I wonder what it'd be like.
That's cool. I'm excited to give that a whirl. We'll see. All right. So, on kind of the note of energy vampires or happiness vampires, or maybe just, the idea of relying on others for our happiness, I'm wondering if that could be one of a number of common misconceptions about happiness. So what are kind of like your top misconceptions of
I will be happy when. I will be happy if. I will be happy when. Outside. And I'm going to tell you right now, stop it, girl. Bring it back. Rewind. Stop playing that track. It is not external. Now, so a few, what I would call happiness. I have to figure out how to coin this properly, but happiness stealers or robbers, or what steals our joy, right? Mm-hmm. Number one is thinking that it's outside of you. That somehow somebody in some other thing, circumstance, environment is responsible for it, and it is a exercise in futility. However you say that, you get it. It's not good. Don't do it. Don't rely on things externally for you. It's easy to do because it feels like it's like less work. If we think, oh, it's a job, it's a boss, it's a partner, it's a situation, it's friends, it's whatever, they'll let you down. So first of all, it's not outside of you. It's within me to look how I look at things, how I engage things. And it's for you to create it. It's my job to create it. For the last, several months, and I've been on this track for a while, is almost every day I find things to do that I didn't see coming when I started my day. And I'm always either on Eventbrite or some sort of, entertainment thing, or it's going to a poetry reading, which I did actually on Monday, and it blew me away at how much more reading I should be doing. But basically it's like, I went to this poetry reading, I've never done it before. You go to a wine sipping, whatever speaks to you. And here is the catch. I don't have to go with anybody. I can just go myself and see what the experience is like. Test the waters and experience. Just create your own happiness in your own way, in your own life, for your own purposes, for you. Because when you do it for you, I then somehow in my behavior, how I show up, it will affect other people. I know for a fact it will affect other people. So I have to take care of me first. I have to train myself first. It's in me. And if I'm miserable, I'm going to be Mary in the shop. I just call her Mary, but I'm going to show misery. And then that's what people do. But what happens is I've created this force field that doesn't really matter. It doesn't matter how people are coming. In fact, when people are, if I ever have an experience where I'm like, oh, people are me, whatever, I'm like, oh, I wish they would try me today. Try me today. Because I'm going to bring you so much joy. You're going to be pissed off at it. You're going to be mad at how much joy is coming your way. People are like, oh, that lady. It's never happened. Nobody's ever been like, no, nobody's ever complained. So I'm like, okay, keep going. Right. Yeah. Smiling at somebody. It's all inside, but I have to remember, I have to create it. I have to build it. I have to bring it for myself first. It's the most self-centered thing you can do. Center yourself in yourself to find that joy and happiness, because it will grow. Yeah. And it will affect other people. The second thing, and this is pivotal. It's important. Comparisons.
Yes.
Comparisons. Girl.
For real. Stop it. Knock it off. It's
not
helping
it off. When you are on your freaking Instagram, scrolling, stop. Yeah. Stop. Hammer time. It's easy to do. We are in a society of comparison. Right. But again, it's also the matrix, or the thing we're in, it's comparisons. What is she? What are they? Oh, they look so happy. Oh my God. If you're on Facebook, 1900 people, if you're born in 1900s, if you're on Facebook or TikTok or whatever it is you're on, right? It's all happy, joy, but it's not true. It's not real. Happy, joy, but it's a representation of what people really want. Because the moment that they took that selfie, the second after, like, right? Like, what happened? So the comparing yourself to other people is death. So don't do it. And we do it anyway. When you do it, recognize this. And here's what I would say as a solution to that. We're going to do it. Notice what it is that you like about what you just saw. What draws you? What drew you? So for example, last night I was like, oh my God, I cannot wait to the day that I'm in a stadium and I have millions of people in the stadium watching me be amazing and and have a motivational concert. Oh my gosh, how awesome. Versus, oh, this is a terrible show. This is horrible. What is she doing? I could do better than this. Like, that's not good. No, it's like, what is it about what they're doing that's speaking to you to go, oh, I like that. If you're going through Instagram and you find a page that you really like and you appreciate, who perhaps somebody who's in your same business or in the same environment that you're in or whatever it is, and you look at it and you go, oh, look at her. No, look at her. What is she doing? What is he doing that speaks to you and go, oh, that goes into my journal of, oh, here's some things I need to work on. Right. Somebody looks great physically. Oh, here's some things I need to work on. Right. So it's a sort of, instead of comparing it like they have and you don't, is rather like, oh, what should I be doing more of? Oh, I forgot about that. Oh, I need to get in my podcast bit. Oh, yes. Amy's got this on lock. Gosh, that's right. Right. She has a great web. Ah, that's right. Right. Versus, because we get into this competitive mode in our head, in our own brain. It's all in our head. We all made it up. It's stories we make to ourselves. So we compare. So stop comparing. But if you're going to compare, use it to your benefit, right? Like, well, hey, what do I need? So again, create happiness within yourself. Look at other people and go, hey, what do I still need to work on? What do I do? What were the steps they took? Study the people, right? Study the people that you admire. What did they do? What are the steps they took? The third thing, and I'll tell you right now, some of y'all gonna be like, yeah, that's cool. Practice every day. Every day, practice seeing the good, the joy, the gratitude every single day. You don't have to write it down every day, but at least notice it. Yeah. Notice it. Because what happens is we're trying to shift our brain in the pattern of thought. If your pattern of thought is negativity, you have to shift that thinking. And so it's notice the evidence, back to manifestation. What's the evidence of the things that you want, the life that you want, the things that, whatever it is, look for evidence, but get into the habit of doing it every single day. And if very much possible, write it down, keep a journal. I keep saying I'm gonna write a book of just a bunch of pages. My book will be write it down. It'll just be blank pages. Like just write it down. That's my message. Write it down every day, journal in the morning or in the evening, or it's best if you even do it twice, kind of like flossing. Write down the evidence that you saw. I don't care if you were driving and you saw a bus that said, write it down. I'm like, I saw this bus that said, write it down, because I'm going to get woo-woo here. Your angels, your universe, whatever, your guides are going to bring messages in such sweet, sweet ways that it'll be like, oh, there it is. Right. Yeah. Like, you wanted a peaceful sleep and the guy starts to mow the lawn at 7 a.m. Like, oh, there it is. Funny. How funny is that? Versus waking up going, what the hell? Like, oh, that's hilarious. I said I wanted to work out and I see what you're doing here, universe. Play with me. Got you. I got to be up at 7 a.m. So those three things is, like I said, write it down, when you look at other people, what do they have? And then train your brain to really see it, because if you don't, it'll bypass, and then you won't have, like I said, that muscle built out for later, for when you need it.
Yeah. I've said that before. As soon as you said comparison, I'm like, hell yes. Cause I have it as a part of a talk I've been working on. I see it so much, especially with high achieving, very A-type women who want to strive and achieve. And it destroys our own, sense of self-worth and value in a way that is so unnecessary. And so, I said the same thing too. It was like, turn your envy into inspiration. Like what you see as envy is actually something telling you there's something there that you want, that you desire that you haven't satisfied yet. So maybe that's you need to work on with yourself instead of judging that other person.
Yes. So and like I said, look at their steps. Look at what they did. Come on, right? Because not everybody's you're not gonna be attracted to everything you see, right? What attracts you doesn't maybe not attract me, but there's a reason for that, right? And your subconscious mind is reminding you, hey, you said, hey, Amy, hey, you said you wanted this thing. Hey, it's right here. Look at she's doing it. She's doing it right here.
That's why I'm going to go end up living in a camper van out somewhere remote working, like van life. I follow
Van life.
van lives on Instagram. I'm like, oh, I know. I
Oh
need
my
to be
God.
outdoors more. And then the
Yes.
gratitude practice too. I mean, it seems kind of hokey, but I'm really proud of this aspect with my daughter. She would have a lot of like anxiety around sleep at night and going to bed because she would start thinking about the things that she was worried about. And I realized, well, I'm no different. I'm fine. And then I lay down and then like the whole world explodes in my head. So we started doing our practices of gratitude, and we don't write it down. We just say every night, what are 3 things you're grateful for? And what is 1 thing you hope for? And now she reminds me that we need to do it. Like, I don't have to remind her to do it. She reminds me to do it. And it makes me so happy.
I love it. Is your daughter, you only have one child?
I have 2.
That's
I
right. That's
have
right.
2. Yep. 5 and 10, or 5 and
Yes.
9, making her a year older. She's tall and mature for her age, but yes. And I mean, the same thing with my son. I'm working on that as well, because 5, he's like still a little bit more, I should get right away. And I'm like, okay, I want, but let's talk about what we have.
Yes.
I'd be
Yes.
grateful for that to
Yes.
start.
Oh,
So
so
it's
funny.
like baby
So funny.
steps with them. But yeah, like you said, I mean, it starts so early from 1 to 7 or 0 to 7, such a critical time. So we have to realize all those years after we've been really programmed.
Yes.
So, we've got a few minutes left. I've got a few questions, but I
Mhm.
also want to make sure that our live audience that's listening with us gets the chance to ask a question. One of the questions I had that I think would be helpful is, how can we begin to evolve our mindset to make more room for happiness? I think you've given us a couple of tools and tips. Are there any others that you found very helpful?
Yeah, no, absolutely. There's so many things. I think, but to keep it simple, because I want this to be something that people can take with them and not have to think about, well, so what was the step number 5? Because I don't remember any of that. What I do find is that everything we talked about so far today boils down to 2 things. It really boils down to 2 things: your thoughts and the images you create in your mind based on your thoughts. Because here's how the brain works: you think something, you create an image, and you feel something, and that feeling will create an action. It's a cycle.
Mhm.
And as a perfect example is, if you're in bed, you hear a thud, immediately your brain's like, yeah, right? You're like, right? It's instant. That's how the brain works. So when you want to shift how you're thinking or how you're feeling, so notice how you're feeling. If you're approaching something and it's like, I don't know, I feel nervous about it, I feel whatever. And by the way, fear and nervousness is similar to excitement. Same
Yes.
feeling, right? So when you're feeling nervous about it, I'm like, I'm so excited. I just
I love
changed the
that.
word. It will change the feeling. Change
Yep.
the feeling, you change the result. And so that's it. So think about the thoughts you're having, and when you're in the car, you're like, oh my God, I don't want to do this, right? And so all of a sudden you turn into this exorcist, right? It's like, I don't want to do this, right? Whatever it is you're about to go do, grocery shopping, right? It's like, oh, I'm like, oh my gosh, I get to go figure out what I want to eat. How privileged is that, right? And so you think, notice how you feel first, because the feeling is going to be the indicator of if you are on track or not.
Mhm.
If you're, let me be Abraham, if you're out of alignment with your vortex, if you're out of alignment, your feelings, your body will let you know, because you feel like, okay, you don't feel like great. So I notice how I'm feeling. I'm like, how am I feeling right now? I'm like, okay, so I changed my body, changed my posture, whatever it is. And okay, so and so I backtrack. What was the thought I was having? I gotta look at that. What was the thought I was having? And usually the thought is going to be some deep down, deep rooted negative affirmation. I'm like, there it is. I'm going to go out, weed it out. So every time you're weeding, think of me. Those negative affirmations, just get them out, weed them out, recognize them, write them down even. And then state another affirmation on top of that that's positive to counter that thought. And then what happens is your brain starts to believe it, you start to feel it, and you start to get you get the results, because you're taking the action that you want towards the things that you want. That's how it works. And it's really that, sort of that, it's simple, but it's not easy, right? Because it takes practice. But once you get into it, I'm telling you, it will revolutionize and change the kind of results you get every day.
That's awesome. Sounds like a good thing to me. All right. I didn't see any questions come through the chat. If anybody has questions within the live listening audience, you can come off of mute. But I will end it with this question unless we get interrupted by another. One of the terms that's been talked about a lot in the business world and the corporate world is silent quitting. Just, blaming employees for their unhappiness. What problems can business solve businesses solve with happier employees, and what can companies do to foster a culture of happiness?
Yes. Become culture curators. Absolutely. Listen, really simple, real quick. I'll tell you a couple of things. Easy. First of all, a lot of people do quit, but don't leave, right? And what happens is that happy employees are more creative, more engaged. And by the way, studies after study talk about, 70% of the workforce is disengaged. And it's not that people don't do their work. They do their work, but they don't give extra. They don't give more, because they go, you know what, why? Like, I'm going to do my job description. That's it. And so it's not very motivating. But here's the thing, happy employee, people who are happy. And by the way, happiness, my friends, my corporate people, is not about the donuts and the tennis thing and and the ping pong. Those are nice things for a moment. It gives people, something to do physically or maybe engage socially, but it's the relationships that people create at work. And you want happy employees, find ways that people can find friends. If you have better relationships at work, it'll help you to also feel connected, engaged, like you're part of something bigger, and that matters. And so happiness at work is not external. It's how am I making people feel? Do they feel valued, respected, that they can learn, that they can be trusted and can trust the people around them? So those feelings that we need in every relationship, when we can espouse that at work, is significant. And at the end of the day, here's a kicker. When employees feel like they're learning, contributing, and have the safety to speak up and to share what they're learning and to make a difference, that creates happier employees. So believe it or not, it literally costs nothing. It's not about the things that you create, again, externally. It's how people are feeling about who they are, how they contribute, how they learn, and then there's safety in the environment to make a contribution. That, my friends, will make a huge difference. My corporate people and my managers, it'll make a huge difference when people feel safe to share, safe to make mistakes, safe to learn. And that's a whole topic. It's called psychological safety at work. That makes we can talk about that in some other time, but it makes a huge difference. People feel safe to learn, to share, and to contribute.
Fantastic, Brooklyn. So much goodness in just 1 hour. Everyone that's listening from the chat, they've all had some great comments to share. So make sure you take a look through those, Brooklyn, before you sign off. Make sure that you connect with Brooklyn online on LinkedIn. Next week, we're going to be talking about how to optimize your personal finances with a young tech startup woman who also is working to create a platform that makes financial planning and management easier and less scary and less intimidating. So if you're interested, join us for that. But in the meantime, I'm so glad that you all came and joined us today to listen and learn more about the science of happiness. I hope you all walk away feeling a little more playful, a little bit more well-equipped to go out into the crazy world that is, and just kind of enjoy it for what it is and be a little happier for it. Brooklyn, thank you so much for what you do. I love your message. I love the Chief Happiness Officer. It's all brilliant. Keep doing what you're doing. We need more people like you in the world.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. See
you all. Have a great weekend. Take care, everyone. Bye.